Welcome to the Survive, Scale, Soar podcast. Hear and learn through the success of others how to build the life and business you deserve. Learn to overcome failure, what it means to seek out growth, and how to become the best possible version of yourself. And now, here's your host, coach, entrepreneur, husband and father, and author of the #1 best-selling book, Survive, Scale, Soar, Jeremy Williams.
All right, welcome back to the Survive, Scale, Soar podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy, and this show comes in two formats. Real Talks, which is just me and the mic talking about what's happening in the world and how it relates to your business, and Success Talks. And that's where I get to interview some of the top people in their respected industry, and they share with you, the audience, what has made them successful. And today is a Success Talk, and I'm honored to have an amazing guest on today, Megan Behan with Team on the Rise. She's also a licensed broker by EXP, and has her Team on the Rise, which services the greater Montgomery County area. How are you today, Megan?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you today?
Oh, doing great. I've been waiting on this. We've talked about this for so long, and it's good to have you on the show because I think some of the things you're going to share today are going to help a lot of people that are listening to this episode. Not just in real estate, but just small business in general. And I think some life lessons as well.
I hope so.
Well, Megan, tell me a little bit about Team on the Rise. Who are y'all? Where do you serve?
So we are a small, very nimble team. We service the Lake Conroe area and the surrounding counties. We do a lot of business in the adjacent counties like San Jacinto, Grimes, Walker. We're finding that more and more people are starting to push north, wanting a little more elbow room and wanting a little bit more affordability. And so they're the people that are escaping the more crowded areas south of us. And we are just seeing it. It's growing year after year. We're seeing more and more people.
It's that migration north, right, to the free land, right? More space.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But share a little bit before we jump into the real estate side. Share a little bit about your life and how you kind of came up and how eventually you got into real estate.
Well, I grew up in Florida, and I played on the junior tennis circuit globally. I started obviously playing in Florida tennis, Florida juniors, and then USTA nationals, and then internationally. And I played on the professional tour as an amateur prior to going to college. And then I played Division I college athletics for Duke University in North Carolina. And after graduation, I decided 2001 was a challenging time to exit college, how the market cycles, and it was a very challenging time to get a job. And so I ended up landing in the New Orleans area, where my significant other at the time was. Number one, for affordability, because we could not afford Florida at that time. And I ended up taking a tennis teaching job as the head tennis pro at the Lawn Tennis Club, which is one of the oldest tennis clubs in the United States, and had a really wonderful experience there for a few years. And then Hurricane Katrina booted us out of there in 2005. Mm-hmm. And so we had literally just bought our home in August of 2005. We hadn't owned our home 30 days. And the hurricane hit, and I remember sitting at my parents' house in Florida where we had evacuated to, and I looked at my then husband, and I said, "Where do we want to go?" And we were like, "Okay, let's figure it out." And we ended up in Texas. His company ended up bringing all the displaced workers to the Houston branch, and we just kind of bounced around from one evacuation hotel to the next. And then during my time off, if you will, I found this little Lake Conroe, and I said, "There's a cute little house up on this Lake Conroe. Let's go check it out." And we drove up one afternoon, and it was literally at sunset, so we could not have set the setting was beautiful. And the moment we pulled in the driveway, I said, "This is going to be my home." And it just, we have not looked back. We've hit our stride and just gone from strength to strength since we relocated in 2006.
Yeah, I've been up on Lake Conroe, and those Conroe sunsets are amazing.
It's spectacular. And I spent a couple years working as the head tennis pro at Bentwater. And then 2007, end of 2007, I started thinking about making a change. I knew that, being a tennis player had been my life, and I was ready to start exploring other endeavors. And I decided to pursue my real estate license in 2008. I got my license, and yeah, another wonderful market cycle to enter, 2008, mortgage meltdown. But one of the clients that I worked with at Bentwater was actually a foreclosure broker. So he handled and specialized in the disposition of all the distressed assets in the Houston metro area. And so I cut my teeth at a time in the market when that was really what was going. And I spent a lot of time, and I didn't work with a single normal transaction because we only represented the asset managers working with the banks. So, I spent a lot of time just doing, learning BPOs from some of the brokers on the team, learning monthly status reports because that's what the asset managers were looking for, making calls, fighting with utility companies at that time, and having to do the calls for the cash for keys for tenants that they were paying their rent every month, but the landlord was not paying his mortgage. So I really learned a lot of what goes into that side of the industry. And I learned that it's not for everybody. It's a rewarding side of the industry to the extent that if you've got really good systems in place, that it can be something very successful. But you have got to have very good systems because those banks have expectations, and you live and die by the strength of your team when you're doing moving the type of assets and the amount of assets that we were doing.
That's awesome. And before we jump into the next question, there was just a lot there. We could spend a couple hours unpacking. I want to go back. Like you made some changes, like at probably some of the most unopportune times. Yet I would think you'd agree, though, that you coming in during those times or making those life changes at those times, what did that do for you as a person?
It really taught that you have a couple of choices when you are presented with something as catastrophic as a national disaster. We saw and were surrounded by people that were just going through such horrendous things. And in those moments, you have a decision to make and a choice to make. And it's in the I guess if you want to, for lack of a better word, those dark hours, those are the character building moments. And, my husband and I, we had literally taken all of our savings and bought our home in New Orleans. So we had barely any money to rub together. We had, I guess you could say we had driven right around 10,000 miles because of all the evacuation that we had to do. And, because it wasn't just an isolated disaster zone. You had to drive all the way around because there was no gas, there was no restaurants, there was no grocery stores. There was nothing available. We were getting MREs from the government, at our once a week pickup stations in New Orleans. So when we went back to the parish, which is what they call counties there, it was for many, many, many weeks and months a disaster area. And it's those moments where you're really tested as a human that you and the choices that you make. And we really looked at it as an opportunity to seek out a better life. We weren't native to New Orleans, and so we weren't tied there. We weren't entrenched in the culture. We appreciated the culture. We love Mardi Gras. We love Jazz Fest. We love everything that it has to offer. But it really wasn't our home. And so, and Texas wasn't even on the radar, I'll be honest, but landing in Texas afforded us so many more opportunities that we could never have even imagined, especially as a young 20-something couple. I mean, we saw commerce, we saw opportunity, we saw the ability to afford something that we thought we'd be in our 50s getting our lake home. And so, we really took it as a prime opportunity to better our life. And I think that is really the distinct change in mindset that you have that choice in a moment of disaster. You choose either to rise or you crumble. And we chose to rise to the occasion and make a new choice and make a new life for ourselves.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we could end right here, and I think if you just take that alone, that you have a choice.
Yeah.
And you came into the real estate industry at a not so good time. 2008 to 2010, I could remember like the HAR, which is our board for the local real estate agents in Houston or greater Houston area, declined severely.
Yeah.
And a lot of people left and ran away from the business at that time. And you're like running towards it. And, what did you learn going through that experience? It wasn't an easy experience,
no,
but it sounds like you learned a lot about yourself. And how did that help you in your real estate business moving past that?
It's what I try to coach my new agents to is that it's not in the easy times that you learn what you're capable of. It's in the challenging times, because it really, you have to do the work of real estate. You have to develop the systems and the consistency and really learn to hone your skills. And if you have bad habits, they get revealed in that. So I started in a moment where it was a completely imploded industry, essentially. And so, I will be honest, the first few years, I did very few normal transactions when I was with the foreclosure broker. I didn't represent buyers and sellers. I represented banks. So I was very fortunate in that sense that I had income coming in for those first few years. But it really wasn't until about 2011 or 2012 that I started to do the real work of real estate. But I had by that point kind of established my systems and learning from another broker that you've got to have a very fine-tuned process in order to be successful, because it's not, you can ride the roller coaster like a lot of agents do. But for me, I didn't really see that, consistent income and volume until about I'll be honest, till about 2014.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was in that time you're developing your skills, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all through that time, and thank goodness that I had other income. I was working a side job. I was still teaching. I was still teaching tennis actively to a lot of young junior girls that were, getting ready to launch their junior circuit careers. And so, I was very fortunate. But I think that that's also a key thing, is that, don't be afraid to have another income that you're able to help keep yourself afloat and still do the business of real estate and still actively be engaged in the business of real estate. Because guess what? Markets don't stay that way. I've watched a couple of different market cycles. They go up, they go down, they go up, they go down, and they all have opportunities in them. And it's a matter of really adapting yourself and being able to pivot and recognize those opportunities.
That's great stuff. So, somebody who's listening today, I think a lot of people that aren't in real estate, or they do get into real estate, they base their desire to become a real estate agent by watching like these TV shows with, let's go look at 3 homes and you pick one, and, it's easy. The people move in, they're all happy. Like, what is it like in the day of a real estate agent?
Well, I will tell you right now that is not reality. Reality TV is far from reality. But I will tell you that, any sales job, any sale in any industry is going to have its challenges. But, I believe that, and I know from talking to other very successful realtors that are either indie brokers or with other brokerages that are brokers themselves, it's a successful realtor has a good blend of having tenacity, self-motivation, hustle. They're highly adaptable. They have a strong willingness to continue their own personal development, and they have the capability of pivoting, recognizing when it's time to pivot, because all markets shift. That's part of being in sales and part of, being in the world that we live in. We can't control the big market conditions, but we can control the actions that we do when we're facing those different conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a great conversation with somebody earlier that's stepping into coaching with me, and one of his questions was like, what a question really is more of a statement is, I need to kind of learn some of the new stuff that I need to be doing in order to be successful in this market. And I was like, sometimes it doesn't have to necessarily be the new stuff. It's
Oh,
just doing this.
cool.
Yeah, it's just doing the stuff that's always worked and you might not be doing. So it's about having that persistence, that consistency in the business and activities, and being intentional in it. So that's all really good stuff that you shared there. Would you say would be your number one lead source? Yeah, people always say, well, what do you do to get leads? And I was like, there's 100 different ways. Which one are you going to commit to? What's one of your main lead sources?
I would say that it's been a good blend. I think that you have to have multiple streams of lead generation sources coming in, and how you handle them is still consistently the same across the board. And it's what you focus your energy on will obviously flourish the most, but it's still the same principle across the board, whether it's your sphere, whether it's Zillow, whether it's online leads, Redfin, you name it. But I have found that the last couple of years, it's been a good blend of some different online sources that have provided us lead, but primarily the sphere, our sphere, because those are the people that really know you. At the end of the day, real estate is still a relationship business. I don't care how many companies come in and try to say, oh, we're the next big thing and we've got a new way to do it. It's hyper local. It really comes down to the relationships that you foster and nurture and cultivate over the years.
Absolutely. It's one of those businesses where they have to trust you. I mean, it's their biggest asset typically that you're helping them move, and they want to trust the person that they hire to either sell the home or buy the home.
Yeah, and it's not some online person, somewhere far away that's going to get the job done. It's going to be someone who's in the trenches, living locally, with local knowledge on the pulse of what's going on in the community, that can really help them to make an informed decision.
Absolutely. What do you think is the biggest challenge you've faced since being a real estate agent?
Oh man, there's so many, but I would actually say I'm going through that right now. The last few years, it's been incredible as a realtor. And I think that's been, almost one of the things that we have to say as a cautionary tale. Don't base your, expectations of how things are going to unfold when the market is on a high or on the way up. Because the reality is it can be, you have to be willing and able to pivot, just like I coach my team. When times get tough, you have to start really looking at what are income producing activities, and what are things that you need to start shedding, and shed them quickly. And I think it's an important thing to focus. Where are you spending your money? Because perhaps you really need to take what you were spending somewhere else and focus on your sphere, on the things that are actually bringing you business. And it's really that adaptability. And right now, I'm having to look at the expenses that I've had the last few years, because I had so much money coming in, and really starting to, with a fine tooth comb, go through and look at my profit and loss and determine what is unnecessary. I've already started doing a lot of cutting, because when the market shifts, you've also got to be ready to shift and still stay profitable, and still stay, actively engaged in the business of real estate. So when the market does go back the other direction, that you're ready to take off with it.
Yeah, I think, when times are good and the money is coming in, it's easier to buy tools and, all these things that kind of come along.
Shiny objects.
The shiny objects, the things that are reoccurring month to month. And then when the market changes, you kind of go back and look. And I had this the other day. I was at Zoom webinar. I haven't used Zoom webinar in 2 years yet. I've been paying for it. And so, I saved myself $1,000. I don't use it anymore. So I think it is key in any type of market, even when things are good, to go back and just occasionally look back and say, okay, is that really giving me the return on investment that I thought it was going to bring?
Bingo, 100%.
What has been one of the biggest wins in your business?
When I think about it over the years, it's really been taking that step to launching my own team, having the courage to not get complacent and stay in the safety of the organization of where I was, because of, the glamour of it, and the reputation where I was at. And so it took a lot of courage to step off of that ledge, if you will, and fly on my own again, because you get very comfortable with all of the resources that are brought to the table. And then you have to then look at, how do I recreate that? How do I rebuild those systems for myself? And it takes a lot of courage to, make that first step, but boy, is it worth it.
It's you're building something for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What do you think? The market's always a question that I get. How's the market? And I coach my agents to always say it's great, because it is great in one aspect or another. We look at the news today, we see all the stuff that's going on. Interest rates are climbing. Sales prices also exploded over the last few years. But what are the opportunities today for buyers and sellers?
One of the things, having ridden through several market cycles, there are certainly going to be challenges in today's market, but it's, as an experienced agent, and one of the things that I talk with my team members about, is that it's our job to stay plugged in to knowing what's going on in our market. What's happening in California and what's happening in New York and Florida has very, very small bearing on what's happening here, other than to know what's going on over there, because it's just a completely different market. And so, you really have to stay kind of focused on what's happening here, and realizing that we don't really go super high up. I mean, yes, we did see some of those crazy bidding wars last year, but we didn't see, like Austin did, the 300,000 or 400,000 over asking price. So we really aren't experiencing the corrections that we're seeing in other markets. And so, we have to educate the consumer to not have that sky is falling, because the news is out there to sell the news. There's, sensational news is what people want to hear. They don't want to hear that, oh, it's going great, everything's no problems. That wouldn't sell. So, it's important to, really engage with your network and find out what builders are doing, what kind of incentives, what kind of lenders they're connected with, what are the lenders offering, because there's quite a few lenders in our area that are working with big builders that buy down packages of rates to help keep the affordability factor. And so you might have to consider new construction for the time being. If you have to be in a home right now, you might have to reset your expectations, maybe have a stepping stone game plan. And so as a realtor, it's our job, and as an agent, to help educate the consumer that here's a good strategy for you. While your dream home might be X, it might have to be the next step. And so, investors at this time are finally able to jump back into the market. Last year, my investors were like, I'm out, I'm not going to be able to compete with a lot of primary buyers on the retail market. And so now we're starting to see investors starting to creep back in, because there is a lot of opportunity that is coming to the table. So, no matter what market we're facing, it is our, fiduciary duty to make sure we are informed enough to help our consumers and our buyers and sellers to make some of the important decisions. And part of that is knowing what's going on in our local market.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, you could go 5 miles away from here and the market's completely different. And,
Correct.
it could be a different market within a particular price point. And so hiring that local agent that has that knowledge is critical, because if you're trying to get that information from Twitter or any of the social medias, or from the national news media, you would think you're Chicken Little and the sky's falling.
Right.
And that's not necessarily the case. There's creative financing. There's getting sellers to negotiate, or negotiating with the sellers to buy down points.
Yeah, and there are other loan programs out there available for very responsible, buyers that have their financial house in order. There's great programs for investing that doesn't, require them to get, involved with a lot of the high interest rates. And so, partnering with an agent that is able to help the client find some of these alternative ideas, that's really our responsibility. And I also think competency in your market is a huge deal. I want my agents to know their market, not just, try to help somebody and they know nothing about their local area. It's a huge disservice. And, that's one of the reasons why we have a referral network, that we rely on those agents to help guide, our mutual clients to a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great information right there. Go with somebody local, with somebody that has the knowledge. So someone's listening today, maybe they're a small business owner. So real estate, maybe not real estate. What is one piece of business advice that you'd like to leave our listener today?
I would say choose wisely who you surround yourself with. And, as you continue to develop, that may change over time. Everybody knows that the 5 people you choose to surround yourself with, are as a reflection of, where you're at. And I think that the other side of it is also don't be afraid of failure, embrace failure, because it's oftentimes the most incredible nuggets of knowledge and learning opportunities get revealed to you in some of your darkest moments. And, we can't be afraid of having those, learning opportunities come at us. And sometimes people get, so focused on, oh, I got to have success. And the reality is sometimes your losses teach you more than any of your wins could ever teach you.
I 100% agree. I tell people, if you're not failing, you're not learning anything. You're not going to get very far.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So you gave a piece of business advice. What about life advice? Just everything you've experienced in your life, even up till today, the Hurricane Katrina, the moving around, the coming into the market at a tough time. Like what piece of life advice would you give?
Protect your mindset, protect your well-being, have the systems in your business, time block those important appointments for self-care. Don't be afraid to reach out to the people around you. I am the first person to acknowledge that I am one of the people that very reluctant to go out and ask for help. And because I am like, I got to figure this out myself. But I have learned in my many years of being in this business that sometimes, what you may be struggling to figure out, someone else has already gone through, or they're in the same situation, but they have a different approach to it. And so, one of the things that in one of the mastermind groups that I've been involved in, they said that no success in the world can compensate for failure in the home. And it's so true. If you're sacrificing everything at the altar of success for your career, it's not a sustainable business model. It really isn't. And so I coach my girls on my team that, no one gets to the end and says, gosh, I wish I worked more. They get to the end and say, I wish I had spent more time with my loved ones and doing the things that bring me joy. And so I would say that, as realtors, we have a tendency, because we don't have a set schedule. It's not a normal 9 to 5. Really be protective of your time off and your time with your family, and protect your well-being. I think that is really what will help you sustain in the long run a career in real estate.
That's great advice. Megan, you've dropped a lot of knowledge today that I know people that are listening in, they're going to get some things that are going to make some changes in their life in a big way. So much there. And I'm going to go back and listen to it again, because there were some things that I caught that I was like, oh, that's really, really good. So I thank you for taking the time today. How can people connect with you and your team?
You can find us on Instagram at Team on the Rise, or Facebook at Discover Montgomery County. And in the coming months, we're rolling out a brand new website, teamontherise.com. So keep an eye out for that as well.
Great. Make sure you go there and visit and follow them on social media. They have great posts. It's not all about real estate too. It's also a bunch of activities that are going on in that area. If you haven't been out to Lake Conroe or anywhere in Montgomery County, lots of great food, lots of great music, all sorts of good things. So make sure you connect with Megan and her team so you know what's going on out there. Megan, thank you again for taking the time out today. And it was an honor to be able to talk with you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, until next time, onward and upward.
Thank you for listening to the Survive, Scale, Soar podcast. If you heard something that made a difference in your life today, share it with someone that might benefit and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Learn more about the host of this podcast and coaching services offered by Red Hawk Coaching by visiting www.redhawkcoaching.com.